Welcome everyone. We're here for a session of Build with Ben. And today, rather than keeping it topical, we're going to do a co-working session where, well, to be honest, as most average web developers goes, my website has been neglected for a little while. I know I've actually been able to update it within, I think, the past 2 years, but there's some TLC that could be done as far as some love and care to different pages. And I figure since today, I have to wrap it up at the hour anyways, let's go ahead and work on some of that. And that way we can have some tangents and that kind of stuff. And hey, if we have some time, maybe I'll stream a little bit of Tetris because that's been a thing I've been doing as well, just to unwind and just take it easy. Okay, so let me switch over to the live stream and then we'll get to some of the questions in the chat. All right. So first question already. I love it. All right. So let me actually, you know what? This is one of the things I'm like, hey, we're going to talk about Nuxt 3 opinions. All right, so this is from Omichi in the chat. So for those, in case you haven't been following, Nuxt 3 is already in release candidate mode, which means that it's that much closer to becoming in stable mode, which is basically developers' way of saying it's ready for production. So with all that said, with the experience I've had using Nuxt 3 so far, it's been really exciting. A lot of great things as far as integrating a lot of what I love about Vue 3 while still taking on a ton of new developer experience enhancements within the Nuxt framework and thinking about how they can break things up, make things easier for people. And then if you didn't know also, like Anthony Fu, who's the creator of, gosh, so many things, but Vue Used is the one that comes to mind most specifically. And then he has Windy CSS. I mean, I think Anthony Fu is honestly one of the most prolific open source contributors I've seen in the past few years, and it's actually been incredible. So as far as Nuxt 3 goes, it's been an absolute delight so far. I know there's still some bumps as far as figuring out how to better migrate people from different dependencies. So for example, my website is still on Nuxt 2, so that's what we're actually going to be looking at today, because right now the Nuxt Content module, which I depend pretty heavily on, and I actually really, is still not quite ready yet. So once that's ready, you're going to see me, we'll have a whole stream on migrating from Nuxt 2 over to Nuxt 3, looking at the new content module. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, that's the TLDR on Nuxt 3. With that, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're doing today. So if we look at the Ben Code Zen repo, here we go. Okay. So what we're taking a look at today is my personal site. So here we go. We can see here, it's a slightly modded theme that I picked up where basically I have a very simple homepage for just some of the things that I love doing. I am pretty proud of this animation that I built at the time to sort of do this like icon-centered like visual effect, so that it's very minimalist and not a lot of word clutter. But then when you hover over it, then yes, you get the accessibility of seeing the actual text in case you don't know what the icon is, which I was pretty happy with. And so you can see here that like you can see the different colors of the things, because one of the challenges, if you're ever like designing and thinking about building your own site, is that when you do the same color of the icons, then like sometimes you lose out on some of the contrast. And especially when nowadays logos have, they used to basically, okay, I'm detracting a little bit. There used to be a time where logos were like all following the same schematic. So for example, like there was a time where flat icons were really, or flat logos were really, really big. And then eventually you can see with Instagram, they went back into the more like, they have like gradients and that kind of stuff rather than just straight colors. Anyways, this was a nice little balance I found of still highlighting what makes the logo look good while still keeping like a consistent color palette when the user is interfacing with the site. Dave may have just, did he just drop some knowledge here? Let's see, Nuxt Content V2. So it looks like Nuxt Content Introduction. All right, we're doing some snooping. As far as that goes, I know that it's been really close. Nuxt 3 release candidate, we know that. Nuxt 3 RC2 is out. Yup. This is the tweet I'm thinking of, Dave, as far as Nuxt Content 2, but I don't, unless, did I miss something? I can't wait until release Nuxt Content 2. That's all for today. It's March 18th. Maybe the site leak. It's very possible. Gosh, yeah, this is, oh my gosh, look at this. Live preview editing that will update the markdown file. I can't even begin to explain how excited I am for this and how much Nuxt Content GitHub. All right, GitHub, let's go. Do. So it does say it features Nuxt 3 support, but I don't get the sense from the website that that is the case. Because this is we don't have V2 on here. And the thing is that they're supposed to, I'm pretty sure there are new APIs for this. All right, so let's do some intuitive guessing, shall we? If we were to guess what we think the next one is, maybe like V2 here. Nope, that broke. Okay, that didn't work. What if it's like a subdomain like v2.nuxt.js? Nope, that didn't work either. Okay, ooh, snap. I see that Dave has found the secret website. Oh gosh. Well, although interesting enough, it still says the API version is, maybe it's just because they're inheriting a component. Oh snap. What? Nuxt 3 file-based CMS. Dang. Query builder, deploy everywhere. Okay. I think this may have just turned into a Nuxt 3 content stream or Nuxt Content 2 stream. Yup, I think it did. Yeah, okay. We're gonna, okay. So we're transitioning. So I was originally gonna do some live, actually we'll spend a little bit of time doing that, but we're gonna do we're gonna go on this tangent because I think this is great. So Dave, do not apologize. This is great. So we'll call this like this section of the stream recording. This will be basically like a first look at Nuxt Content V2, because apparently it is live and public. And even if it is some kind of leak, clearly it's public. Because again, I know the team, if they really wanted to like keep it on lockdown, they certainly would have done. So in that case, let's play around with this. All right. So first thing first, just so everyone's on the same page, let's just follow the docs, shall we, for getting started. We're just gonna go ahead and set up a new project, which actually, now that I mention it, where is it? All right, here we go. Great. So go ahead and fire up the terminal. Sure, go ahead and update. That should not take long. Excellent. All right, so let me bump this up a little bit so it's not as ginormous. Great. All right, we're gonna introduce, all right, so there's a couple things we're gonna need to do. We're gonna call this Nuxt 3 sandbox. Actually, do I have a Nuxt 3 sandbox? That's the thing. If you've built enough like test projects over time, eventually you find out you just end up creating the same thing over and over again. So I just want to make sure. I might have already have one. I do have one. See, I told you, I had a feeling. I did do this at one point. Okay, great. That's what we should bring in. Oh, that's not what I want. CD projects. Git clone this. It already exists. Okay, the only problem with this though, I believe, oops. Okay, so this should work. It might be a little out of date though. That's the only thing that makes me a little nervous. But we's about to find out what's going on here. Nuxt 3 latest. Okay, maybe it's gonna be fine. All right, so we're good on dependencies. Yes, we are. So we can dev it. We can go over here. Nuxt is up. Set theme. Great. Okay, so we have our sandbox. Let's play around, shall we? Okay, actually, no. This should be 2/3. This should be 1/3. Beautiful. Okay, so we have that. Let's go ahead and play around with this. So Nuxt Content 2. Here we go. Nuxt. Oh, interesting. They want a fresh project. Oh, wait, this is the quick start. That's why. Wait, what is this MDC extension? Is this something new? Ooh, they have a new VS Code extension. Okay, I can get on board with this. Let's check it out. Syntax highlighting and colon match. You know what? You know what we're gonna do though? We're gonna install this afterwards. I like seeing a before and after for this kind of stuff. So let's not even worry about that right now. Let's wait on that just a second. Add to a project. This is what we want. Here we go. So npm install save dev Nuxt Content. I believe I have the right command, but just to double check. Yep, I memorized that correctly. All right, so inside of here, we have all that. That's installing, and then great, that's done. Now that we have that, we're gonna go ahead and check out the Nuxt config. We do not have enough real estate to do columns next to each other. Build config, yep. Build modules, Okay, so modules wise, we're just gonna do Nuxt Content. That looks good. Then I like content then gets various options. Content v2 requires yes, yes, yes. Okay, usage section. Okay, great. So we're gonna save that. Now, if we go ahead and restart npm run dev, cannot run properties of Nuxt Content, Nuxt Kit. That's a little odd. Let me do this. Let me wipe out the node modules real quick. And then we're gonna go ahead and reinstall, just make sure we get the latest from everything, because chances are actually, even though I have latest written down, you know what, I bet it's gonna break again because of the package dev. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna try one more time, because this is what happens when you're bleeding edge. Sometimes things just don't work as smoothly as you want. So let's just delete all the package logs so nothing gets stuck anywhere. Now let's run this. This should do a clean install. All right, so now, so at one point when I was playing on Nuxt, especially early on, like as you would expect, because the API is not stable, if you kept it at a certain version and then you were trying to try out new features, it just wouldn't work. Especially with Nuxt Content v2, given that I haven't even seen an official announcement, and this is a slight leak in that regard, it's like a sneak preview, then I would assume that it's really requiring the latest Nuxt stuff. Okay, this is better. Run dev. Okay, at least the error is different. Cannot find module Nuxt. What is going on? Nuxt 3 sandbox. Okay, we're not gonna worry about this configuration right now. I don't wanna spend our time doing this. We wanna play with Nuxt. So what the hey, we're gonna go ahead and just we're gonna start a new project. This time I'll call it Nuxt 3 content. -t content, I think apparently that did not work. npx nuxi init content. Oh, come on. Invalid template name. Is it because my Nuxt CLI is too... No, but npx is always supposed to pull the latest. This might be too early. All right, hang on. It says you can play on... Actually, yeah. Oh, nope. Nope. Okay. We're a little early, it seems. All right, but that's okay, because honestly, I can demo a lot of what Nuxt Content is. So again, this is, I guess, I will save this as part of the recording because it's just sometimes it's interesting to see what it's like to explore things that are new. And this is what it's like when we're trying to be on the cutting edge of things. Okay. Yes, the full Nuxt 3 experience of not quite sure it's totally ready. And so you're just trying stuff out. And I think honestly, this kind of general thought and mindset is actually, I think it's important for developers to get comfortable with this, because when you're new to development, one of the things I found is that you don't know any different, so you're just doing whatever people tell you to, right? But what you're actually doing is you're trying new things. So when they're like, please just use this setup, this tool chain, you're like, I've never done anything before. Sure, I'll run npm run start. I have no idea what that does. You learn over time. What I find is as engineers get more experience, a lot of times they get comfortable in the tool chain they have, and they're very, very reticent about trying new things. And I think that limits people's development, and more importantly, it can make it hard to then have discussions for the community to grow. Because one of the things I will say is that whenever I hear the argument that something should be done because something is popular, I think it's a flawed argument, given that a lot of times with things like data sets, when it comes to the surveys from front end, or like how many people use like X framework or whatever, it doesn't actually consider the totality of the world when, frankly, like we know that Asia has a very large tech sector, but that's often not factored into those surveys where a lot of them seem to be very North America, like Europe centric. So it's just one of the things that is interesting when people are talking about like technical decisions. Now, don't get me wrong, when you're talking about job prospects, that certainly plays a role. If you're like, oh, like I'd like to get a job doing X thing, then certainly where the hiring's happening, you probably want to learn that skill. But from just a learning perspective of, is something a good pattern and is it like gaining traction? I think sometimes we are a little bit short-sighted on that kind of bit. So Omichi here, the CMS looks so cool. I learned Sanity CMS before, was super nice already, but Nuxt Content to be great as well. Yep, so actually let's jump right in. So we went on a little bit of a fun tangent exploring a possible Nuxt 2 or Nuxt Content 2 that's gonna trip me up because I want to say Nuxt Content 3 because it's Nuxt 3, but it's Nuxt Content 2 with Nuxt 3. I will get that right at some point. All right, yeah, let's talk about Nuxt Content. Let's actually see it in practice. So inside of my blog here, I have this whole section inside of my website, I have like my blog. And so, well, what does the blog consist of? Blog consists of basically text but what it really underneath though, and normally you'd have like CMS powering all this, it's all Markdown, which is what's really great. So let's go ahead and open that up. Okay, let me kick this out. We are getting out of this and going into pen code 10. So let me actually close that. Okay. What we're seeing here is that if we look on the blog page, we'll see that actually what we're doing here is we're populating a list of Markdown files from this content blog folder. And this is what's particularly really nice about the Nuxt Content experience and why I think a lot of people really love it, is it gives you access to a really nice API for managing files locally and not having to depend on a third-party vendor. And this can be particularly effective for people's personal sites because don't get me wrong, once you start to scale, then there starts to be like, oh, maybe you want commenting or collaboration and you want all these different tooling that CMSs do provide as far as like approval workflows and that kind of thing. And that's totally fine. But from a sense of if you need a website to manage content, but you don't want to have to hook up a whole CMS, Nuxt Content is pretty darn amazing. So to show you what I'm talking about here, let's go ahead and actually kick out the server and just show you why it's pretty darn cool. And then after that, we'll dive into some enhancements. All right, so npm run dev, that should work. Bum. Great. All right, so let's bump that over here, bump this 2/3, excellent. Okay, so if we go into the blog here, and let's go into like Battle of Personas. So let me go ahead and open that up here, and let's hide some stuff so that it's easier for y'all to see everything. Hide that. Okay, great. So what you notice here is that everything here is actually being defined inside of the Markdown file. So you see you have hot module reloading, but you have all this like ability to define front matter the way you normally would. The other thing that's really cool about Nuxt Content though is that if I double click into here, what you might have noticed is that it actually shows you the raw Markdown file inside of your browser. And so this is essentially like a MVP version of a live preview where you can basically type what you want and then see how it changes. So in the case of, you know what, we're going to make this whole thing a quote, for example. And again, you need to know Markdown to know this. But if I switch it, you'll see, boom, the whole thing changes. I can see what it looks like. And based on the preview, though, that I already saw from Sebastian's tweet, they're looking to make that whole experience like built in. So it's basically like you're working with a live document editor rather than working with a raw Markdown. I'm curious to see how they balance the editing experience with that, because as someone who does a lot of note-taking apps and have experienced a lot of WYSIWYG tools, there is right now, I think, I feel like the industry is trying to establish this balance between how do you go from providing your standard WYSIWYG tools, which if you're not familiar with WYSIWYG stands for what is what you get. So you think of Microsoft Word, Google Doc, what you type when you bold something, that's immediately what you. On the other hand, the opposite of a WYSIWYG is like text documents, which is like this. You have to basically imagine what will happen. So in this case, I had to put like the greater than symbol in order to indicate that it would be a quote. Whereas in a WYSIWYG tool, you would get that immediately. The reason why I'm saying there's a balance with the UX of this right now is because there's this question of at what point do you need to provide people a way to tap or hack into the system. Because while it's great when everyone does the same exact thing every single time, we all know that especially when it comes to content and over time, exceptions they're just a thing where like you go, you know what I really would love? I would love a way to include an image that's like a certain pixel width, or I want to actually embed something in here. And I've seen different levels of success with APIs for that, for how like a user might add something custom. Because let's say, for instance, like I wanted this quote to be like, let's say I want it to be like a danger quote, and I want it to be like red quotes instead of the blue quotation marks. Basically, as far as I'm aware, there's really no way to do that right now, except to maybe then go like div class, quote error. And then assuming your markdown parser works properly, then again, this won't do any, oh, I see I broke it in this case. Because you'll see here now, if we actually investigate this, the quote did, so you see that the div does work, but then it made it into a string. So I think the way you fix this is you need to have another line, there you go, line break between. And so this is what I'm talking about, where like there isn't really an agreed upon convention yet as far as I've seen that like instinctively goes, yes, that's the way to do things. Whereas, for example, what we have seen is, while I will acknowledge the fact that it's not popular with everyone, block level editing has become pretty common as far as people's expectations now of some of the more sophisticated tooling, so that you can basically hit like / on Notion and then it'll automatically say, do you want a block quote or whatever? And then you can choose the right block. Anyhow, that's like a whole separate discussion in and of itself. Okay, so all that to be said and done, this is Nuxt Content at its original form. So I'm very, very excited for the enhancements that the team is going to bring for version 2. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and work on some stuff in the meantime. So let me go ahead and discard these changes actually, because I don't actually want to make those changes. Bum, 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 checkout done. Okay, great. Oh yeah, I turned off the server. That's good. Okay. So now that we have this, loading the app, great. Okay. So one of the things that has come up pretty recurringly on the stream, and I've attempted this with varying degrees of success, is that I do want to make it easier for me to actually keep a list of resources that are updated, so that people can actually, there's a place for me to point people to. So currently, for example, oops. Oh, I know why. Okay, my learn page is clearly broken. I know why it is though. And then my schedule page is also broken. Yeah, so the reason for that is because I'm using serverless in order to fetch my data, and that requires me to use the Netlify dev so that it can actually spin up a proper node server to retrieve stuff. I need to link it. Failed to do add-ons. It's already linked. Uh-oh, what's going on? Failed retrieving add-ons for site not found. Double click your log NTL status. Current user, yes, okay. NTL switch, so I can switch accounts. So apparently I'm still on my Netlify account. There we go. Now I can do this. Okay, beautiful. Bum, 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 bum. All right, excellent. So we have our schedule here. This should pull in everything from Notion right now. So let me go ahead and, schedule. There we go. So here we go. We see Ben build Ben, May 17th. Yep. So this is good. Looking good. All right. So the problem is, as you can expect, as we can see, it's unless someone really is trying to look for archival data at this point, these things are fairly useless to people. And so that's what I think I want to try to fix right now, is because I want to actually be able to point people to the right things. So at the bare minimum, in a perfect world, you would probably want to, if you wanted to learn with Ben, you could then theoretically check out that. You could see all the past episodes. Okay, I did at least put a YouTube playlist, so at least there's a bare minimum of that. But again, not great from a searching perspective, and more importantly, as a lot of things I actually have. Sorry. So especially now that we have recordings up for things, I want to make sure those things are correlated, and then more importantly, people want to search through certain things. I want that to be able to happen. All right. So like any good thing, we're going to start by just at least talking through the problem. So we're going to go ahead and use, Excalidraw inside of our, only 2 minor versions? I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, great. So let me go ahead and, yeah, I think this is good enough. Okay. So first thing first, there's a couple of things that need to happen right now. So actually, I'm just going to full screen this part. All right, so first thing first is we have this, okay, so we have the live streams. This is where a lot of my content currently starts off with. It's a nice dedicated way to create content. So actually, how do I do this? Let's see, let's call this let's grab this and let's call this content infrastructure. Great, and then I'm gonna make this nice and big because this is really what it is. So typically we have a live stream. The live stream is typically fed through some Obsidian note idea. So this thing feeds into here, right? So the live stream, now here's the thing though, right? Then the live stream then typically gets edited through a descript process, descript editing. So I can go from here to here. Descript editing goes from, actually this is a process, right? So a process, can I switch, how do I switch shapes? Can I switch shapes? Let's find out. I don't think so. All right, that's fine. So here we go. This is like a decision tree, let's say, and then let's go into do. And then I think that worked. Great. So it goes through some editing here, and then we'll switch out this font size. Excellent. Once we get through the editing, this is the problem, right? Because the website needs to show a couple of things, right? The live stream then has a schedule, some sort of schedule, which let's go ahead and do like properties, right? So there is like the website itself. So the schedule feeds into this, and so the live stream feeds into a schedule, it feeds into this. But then if we're thinking about it another way, once we have the schedule, people have watched the live stream that's editing, then this usually ends up going to sit on YouTube, some sort of recording of it. So actually then, to be consistent, what I really should do then is say, there's Twitch that we do here. Then from Twitch, we go here, and then here we go here. Okay. So actually, let me rename this real quick. Ben Code Zen Content Infrastructure. So let's see, now that we have this, okay, so from the editing though, this is where we get here, but then the schedule ends up, I need to be able to actually put, okay, so here's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to take this and move this over here at some point. And also, can I make this rounded? How do I do that? Nope. That's not what I wanted. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we have that here, great. YouTube website. So there's a couple of things though, because YouTube also then, I usually try to announce this on Twitter, right? So this usually gets thrown to here. But Twitter is not, it's like a great place for, if someone's looking for the latest and greatest, that's fine. But then if people are looking for archive, they still need to actually go to the website. So this tells me that right now, where does everything live? So currently, let's create this box for Notion. Currently, the content, yeah, I haven't figured this piece out. Okay, so Notion API is really what's feeding everything. So the Notion API is what feeds through this. And actually, you know what? No, storage location is fine. I'm gonna keep that as that square. But then this is what's interesting. This feeds into the schedules, feeds into the website. But then eventually we have a learn page, because they're not always, if people can't attend my live stream, they're probably not going to go there. But if people want to look at other content, they probably want to look at some sort of learn page, right? So this learn page is what feeds into this website. And gosh, I love whiteboarding tools from this regard of like just moving your thoughts around and being able to explain things as you go. And in case people haven't been following along, so I'm doing this inside of Obsidian because I can link this stuff later to actual Obsidian notes and do all this fun stuff, because just to show you all what's going on underneath the hood, if I switch this over to Markdown mode, you'll see that it's basically that entire document is actually a that entire Excalidraw file, which you might expect to be some like complicated binary, is actually a giant markdown file with some data points and stuff so that it'll render correctly inside of Excalidraw. But anyways, so that's how that works. And so it's really useful for note taking, because otherwise the way I used to do things is I would have to like inside of a text document, like sketch things out and then maybe transplant it over, or vice versa. I would have to go inside of here and then try to transplant it into my text notes somehow. And now it just lives together and it's beautiful. All right, anyways, that's my little Obsidian Excalidraw spiel. I do have a recording of that, which I'll make a note to drop that. So actually, let me go to build with Ben 30, wrong one. Build with Ben 33. We would drop the Obsidian Excalidraw session recording. Great. Okay, so inside of here, we know that the learn page, okay, So the learn page should also be driven by this Notion API. That's clearly what needs to happen here, because I'm having a little bit of trouble. And so the YouTube, once it's uploaded onto YouTube, that needs to go back into Notion. So it looks like what I need to do is design a way to manage the content in here so that this goes to here, then it can be correctly outputted to the right place, is what I'm seeing here. So if we're gonna, let's see, so for this is basically the gold point. Everything else are just outputs. And so outputs, I'm just gonna make that yellow. And then, yep, these are actual processes where things actually come out. Let's make these purple. Yep, that goes there, that goes there, that goes there. But then this is what I need to fix. So there's clearly a process which editing happens. So what's a transformation color? I'll just say red for fire. So there's something happening here though, because what needs to actually happen is it goes from this. Oh, I think I know what happens. Okay. This needs to go into a content prep process. So basically this needs, from Obsidian node idea, it goes into this. Okay, so I'll tell you. So this is sometimes what's tricky about when you're architecting like how data is being managed, is that one of the problems right now is that Obsidian is my source of truth for mostly everything. However, making Obsidian the source of truth is a little tricky. Okay, let me finish my thought. The reason it's a little tricky is because there's not like this external API you'll call to fetch things. In other words, you're at the whim of whatever is local, and more importantly, then you need a way to ingest whatever is local. But it just occurred to me, granted though, it's like a little far away from this, is that with Nuxt Content, there's nothing stopping me from finding a way to integrate my vault into my website. So if I integrate my vault into my website, this would mean that like Nuxt Content could see the markdown files, and then everything could technically be managed from there. Like really, in a perfect world, there would be an Obsidian API that like an external web server could interface with. I'm just gonna look up really quick API. API for web server. Oh, hold up. What's going on? To a plugin. No. I want to export everything. Local REST API. What is this? What is this? Vault file name. Eh? So someone else is thinking about this clearly. Obsidian static file server. This is a plugin, allows you to hold Obsidian subfolders as static file servers. Embed website with core issues, access your vault files from other applications. Make it fully, put some open site, enter and port number. You can now display the files in an iframe. But what this tells me then is that I could query. This is where this is part of the reason why Nuxt Content v2, I really want to wait for that before I really try to hack something else, because there is a level of, I'm curious, one, how extensible that API is, because I love Obsidian and I'm clearly like very invested in it, but at the same time, an Obsidian specific plugin to surface this won't allow, call it a more broad application of this concept, which is, once again, everything lives inside of Obsidian. Because right now, again, so watch. So let's flesh this out. Obsidian here from here, then has to go to some sort of content prep state, which then would theoretically go into Notion API. And then I guess The Notion API feeds the schedule, and Twitch is an organic process that just happens. Like I do the stream, although now I feel like that shape is the wrong one, but that's fine. So then content prep here, Descript editing here, goes to YouTube here, but then there's like content updates. You actually have to update it with the new thing. And so that would technically go from here to here. Content updates go here. And then in a perfect world too, which I was trying to do at one point, there'd be like a high level blog entry for the video release. And the reason I say this is because I really would like to give people the ability to search through my videos, because at the moment I just don't have the infrastructure to set up really clear edited videos that are like very topic driven. Because sometimes, as we know, like this stream is not so much. There's actually kind of a consistent theme. Sometimes I do Q&As, and I know that for the purposes of SEO and stuff, it's easier when you just have the one video that's like my favorite Git techniques, and then it's 5-10 minutes, whatever, rather than like it being buried in like an entire stream. I know that's the ideal, but currently I just don't have the infrastructure to support that. At the bare minimum though, if I could, in the content prep idea here, and actually figure out what I'm doing for the session, then the bare minimum I could be like, hey, in this session we did this, and if I have time I can enhance it, but then it's not like completely stored inside of video, which again, I love doing, and clearly I have a lot of fun, but I want to make that information more available in different ways. I see here 0x9o, any idea when Nuxt Content 2 comes out? It's definitely on like the cutting edge. So this is why Dave was saying, in fact, he even found call it like the preview site of the doc site. We can see here that if we look here for this tweet. So actually, what am I talking about? We're gonna copy this tweet and drop it in the session. So speaking of, actually, let me just fix that because I do refer to it like that a lot. So here, we're gonna drop that. Yeah, so as we can see, this is pretty exciting because we're seeing here, there's a picture-in-picture where there's a preview mode. We can see what's going on and getting started. Yep. So it's getting there. This was last posted on May 8th. So it's been about a week. I would say, if I were to guess, I would say within the next month, we should see some sort of release of Nuxt Content 2 at the bare minimum to play around with. Maybe it won't be stable, but it may be at least be in a beta stage, or maybe even release candidate, who knows. But I am very stoked at the prospect of this plugin. Okay, so as we look at this workflow, content updates, yeah, because once you're editing Descript, YouTube, you have to update the API, but then where does the blog step into here? So then if you go from Twitch to Descript editing, I know I'm starting to get better at figuring out where the chapters are being marked. So it's from here that you get, oh, you know what though? This is what we should do. Okay, so let's say that these are platforms, right? Purple is platforms. As you'll come to learn, I like to figure out ways to visually differentiate things. It's a really big thing for me. So even if there's a lot of text on the document, I'll throw in emojis because I want to visually break stuff up and to make it easier for my brain to just parse things. So what I really should do actually though, because these are like destinations, right? These yellow places, this is like where it ends up. Or these are specific pages, almost like documents. However, what do I want to do for artifacts? Let's see, browse libraries. Do we have, they have, this is cool. Little like database stuff. Neato, let's try this. So if I come here and I open it and I go to downloads, is it not in downloads? Then desktop, there we go, software arc, Excelodraw, great. All right, I like this, let's take this. We'll call this the artifact. Ooh, can I change it? Oh, excellent. All right, so from here, from Twitch, we get a raw recording. Oh my gosh, come on. Okay, perfect. Wait, is it not an object I can attach to? No, that's a deal breaker. Why is it pause, add to library, copy as PNG, create link, duplicate? No! Boo. Okay, I need to figure out why that is, but that's fine. For now, we're just gonna say that we'll just use another circle, and this time the circle will be, blue is too close to purple, so we're gonna do, these colors are starting to blur together for me. Okay, we'll just do gray for this is like the output. All right, we get an original recording here that then goes through Descript editing. So this is one of my artifacts. Then from here to here, we actually get a different artifact here. So this is the edited video. But we also get a couple of other things out of this as well. We get chapter, or let's see, chapter content chapters. Okay, I'll just call it that for now. It's fine. I think this is what needs to happen because the editing, I try to pull out what timestamp goes where. The edited video does go here, which then goes here. But then the content chapters really should feed, here's where it should go. So this, the content chapters feed back into the note. The note should then feed into the API. Okay, bum bum bum. But then if you're updating the, this is where, no, this is where the blog post kind of results from it too. So then you need an ability to actually write the blog post, which it should actually go from here to here. This is why whiteboarding tools are important. Then you get the blog post, even if it's only a high level. Okay. And the reason we're doing all this, I know we ended up doing a fair bit of like design as far as the data flow goes, but I think this is important because one, I wanted to share what it's like going through my head, and in case you're thinking about creating your own content too, these are just things you got to think about, like how do you make this workflow happen in a way that's not incredibly taxing? Because right now, even this, I realize, see, this, then the blog post technically needs to be, once it's on the blog, that blog post gets fed into a content update workflow as well, which then also goes into the Notion API, because right now we're relying entirely on the Notion to fetch things because it's fairly easy to manage. There already is an API for it. It's working. So the redundancy is here though. So let me just make this green. These are my data sources. Yeah, that's rough. This is my friction. At least I think looking at this is pretty clear to me. It'd be one thing if I had one workflow that like circled everything, but there's even looking at it, it's like fairly convoluted. Yeah, that's just, I think that's part of the nature of the beast. Because from the Obsidian Note idea is how you actually have the ability to then create content prep Notion API. But then, yeah, this is what drives the Twitch too. Woo! There's a lot of stuff going on in here. Okay. So we have a high level for this for now. Now, the main thing is let's start by actually updating the site to see what we can do as far as that goes. So currently, if we look at the site, it's on port 88. At the bare minimum, what I could do is that when I have these scheduled pieces, right? So let's say, for example, if we go to youtube.bencodezen.com right now, we have the latest Build with Ben View 3 Edge functions right here. Okay. It's always weird hearing my voice. I'm still getting used to it. So if we go into Notion though, so let me go ahead and pull this up real quick. Actually, just make sure nothing sensitive comes up on the screen. Switch that. Okay, and then content dashboard. All right. So this is what's currently feeding everything that I have inside of the infrastructure of content. But the problem is though, as you can probably see, I'm trying to duplicate everything that I'm already tracking in Obsidian inside of Notion to allow me to filter and do those sort of things. but the duplicate administrative effort it absolutely is taxing. So it's really making me reconsider how this is going to be done in the future. And if you ask me honestly, I think my goal would be to deprecate the Notion API because I don't really need people collaborating on the document with me. And it's much... Data ownership continues to and this for those who have followed me for a while, not surprised to hear this. It's such an important sticking point for me to be able to own the data and have it available to me whenever I want. And because Obsidian is plain text, this means that even if the Notion server goes down, I can still get everything and build it locally. And so I have it synced to Dropbox too. So I have multiple redundancies, but Notion on the other hand, I don't have redundancies. So if it's down, it's simply down. And I think that's what sometimes makes me hesitant for heavily investing in it, is because of that piece. And I've done a lot of data migrations and had times when I lost access to data, at times where I needed it. So that's what's frustrating about this. But as far as, okay, so clearly, as far as minimum viable next steps, because basically what we see here is that the problem area, so how do I do this? Oh yes, I can take the pen, let's take the stroke and make it red. So this is the problem area right here. This is what makes us sad, because there's too many points of entry. We want, so basically we'll put it in giant red text, font family, I don't care about that. How do I do the text color? Here we go. Nope, canvas background stroke, maybe that is it. Multiple sources of truth. This is a problem. It's making it darn near impossible to manage things. This is the problem. Yep. So in the meantime, because we don't want to completely, one of the things I'm always tempted to do, and I don't know if you all ever feel like that, I imagine some other people do, is sometimes you just want to throw out everything and just start over. But we are about iterating and learning from and making the best with what we have. So given that, let's say for build with the Ben 32, for example, we know a couple of things. Okay. So we know here's the actual official title of the document. So I could do something like this. I think I am going to keep the parentheses. It's kind of like a nice distinguishing factor, but then there's this as well. I don't know. We'll do it like this first, edge functions, and then this will be the publish URL will be this. Great. And then we can update the published date to be on May 16th. Okay. So one of the things that should happen now is we should now go over to, let's go over here. Let's go inside of our source to take a look at how we're fetching the stuff from Notion, because honestly, I forget. Edge functions, that's not what I want. Netlify, oh, this is the .netlify. Schedules, deploy, courses, events, here we go, events. Yeah, so 0x now here, it would be easier if there was an Obsidian API, because I know that having played around with the plugin ecosystem, it is possible to query for things. And DataView has, actually, let me really go. Obsidian DataView API for web server. I don't think they've done this yet. So you can see here, right, there's a query-like syntax that we can use to fetch the items and the things. Although what this does is it grabs properties, not the worst things though. I could definitely work with that as long as I can structure my JSON a certain way. The only thing though is if we take a look at the docs. Oh, it's still only on 0.5? Gosh, amazing. Again, for all that functionality and still not on official V1 yet. I don't think you can actually expose it as a server. Yeah, not yet. Rats. Okay, so not that. Womp. Yeah, I DataView to me makes things super, super easy. Is there a Dropbox API to query? Yeah, there probably is a Dropbox API. But once again, let's see. I think that would just be tricky because I think I'd end up building out a pretty complex search engine just to get things, scrape things, and I'd have to parse things. If things go well from a Nuxt Content perspective, I won't need to do much more than point Nuxt Content at the folder of Markdown files that contains all my stuff. And then with that, I know they've talked about some query tools inside of it. So that's pretty cool. So I want to do that too. I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. All right. So here, record date. So look, we have publishing. Hey, we have a publishing URL and publishing date. I had done this at one point. This is great. Okay. So if this is true, then what this tells me is that if I go, so sorry, I switched context here. But basically I was looking back at the code here, and it looks like at one point I actually did have the foresight to start fetching the publishing information from the database as far as the publishing URL and the publishing date. So given that, what this tells me then is if I look inside of here and then look inside of my schedule, what I should see inside of, yes, oh, it's gonna need the view dev tools for. All right, let me just network, refresh. Things are glitching. Okay, there we go. That took a second. Schedule. Why is it acting funny? Okay, so this is not good. Reboot. Good old restart. Let's figure that out. Great. Yep. There we go. Okay, so now that we've asked that, we should have asked for an events payload. Yep, this is the response. So now if we take a look at this, inside of here, we should see a number 32. And the number 32, I guess if we say, actually, let me just format it. Oh, wait, format document. Okay, so we go to number 32. We'll see that we have a date, we have a publishing. Okay, so we have a publishing start and this. So this tells me that if I refresh this page now and look at 32, page did update, but while a little bit better, we can enhance this by saying now, so let's go to the events, content data. Oh, that's not what I'm looking for. So if I go to the schedule page here is listing everything. Everything has here recording URL, past events. Okay, so past events here, we can see that there's the date, and then we can also say recording, and then if my instinct has it correct, we should be able to say YouTube. For now, we can assume all YouTube will be YouTube video. So then it'll be href equals event dot recording dot publish. Oh wait, no. Event dot publishing, because that's what we have. So inside of publishing section, we get the URL. Yes. Okay, that should be the YouTube video here, and then I just need a v-if on this part. If event.publishing exists, no, it always exists. So dot URL. That's all I need to check. So if I save that now and go here, we can refresh, and hopefully that doesn't break everything. It was reloaded. Yup. I think something to the request of the server is botching it. So again, I'm not going to sit here and wait for it. We're just going to reboot it just to do a clean start. But from a templating perspective, this should be clean. Event in, yup, schedule. Yeah, I need to clean that up. Okay, recording YouTube video, great. Only problem is though, why is there a gigantic gap? Oh, it's not what I wanted at all. Why is there a gap? Oh, because of this P element. So is this the date that margins out the bottom, margin bottom 0? That's why. So for now, again, for the sake of quickly taking care of this, that should have saved. And 32, that removes it. Great. Okay, so that is an MVP for now, so that we have the ability to see the past YouTube video. And so just to walk through the architecture for that, in case anyone wants to like reverse engineer that and figure out what the heck is going on, let me start by committing this work. Let me just add the VXH emoji, and then we can kick this out. So feature, add ability to see recording if there is an entry in Notion. Okay, great. That's going to get pushed up. So now this gives me more motivation to go through and actually update the Notion stuff as I go through, because now at least I have some infrastructure to show that that stuff is connected. I have bigger plans for how everything relates over time. I'm looking forward to making that engine work. So can better share all the stuff that. Okay, so I promised I would show you really quick how all of that works. So inside of the schedule, once again, we have this ability to fetch from an API events. And so API events is ultimately a serverless function. In other words, which is really just a fancy way of saying you're building your own API endpoints. So you like something else is managing the server, but you're building out those endpoints. So for me, if we look inside of here, my endpoints live in the Netlify functions folder, and there's this events here. And so earlier I showed a little bit of this of how this is working, where we're getting the object, this object that I'm defining here. And for every item, I'm mapping these specific properties to a more, call it sane structure that's easier to understand, because I know why the team organized the API this way, but it's a lot to type. It's a lot organized around, because again, they're trying to account for any scenario. And so if I know the strict schema in which I want my data to look like, it's a lot cleaner to be able to use dot syntax, not having to memorize like what the exact string is, what space is, etc. So that's good. And so anyway, so that's how you get the results. And this is being fetched here from the basically Notion database. And so that's in here, and that's how, so this is my database ID, and we're using the Notion query to basically query the database and grab all the stuff inside of it. So that's how that works. Yeah, and play around with that. But otherwise, let's go and switch back on over to the camera, shall we? Okay, so in this session, we clearly, interestingly enough, this was probably more of a design with Ben session as we talked about data flow processes, and I'm thinking through my own infrastructure for how content is ultimately being managed and why, honestly, it was a bit of a retrospective for me to reflect on what's been causing a lot of friction when it comes to keeping everything updated. Because a lot of it, as we saw in the diagram, it seems small at first when you're just like, yeah, I did the stream and then I'll like edit this and then I'll do this. But then when the engine starts to like basically get at pick up at a consistent pace, start to notice that there's friction that ends up happening, things get dropped. And so this is why I know where I want to end up. So now I just got to figure out where the friction points are, which we've established through diagramming that the problem is that there are multiple sources of truth at this point. So hopefully over the next month, we'll see updates regarding Nuxt Content V2, which we've been talking about earlier in the session. So I can basically guarantee you that once that comes out, there will be sessions around that, probably deep dives, probably going to end up building a whole course around that, because I think it's one of those things where it'll really enhance developers' abilities to really experiment with things and do things that might otherwise have required you to build like a node server to read a specific file and then to update it, blah, 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 blah. And so I'm super excited for that and looking forward to it. So hopefully within the next month, we'll have some Nuxt Content V2. In the meantime, I really appreciate everyone for hanging out today. It's been an absolute blast. Big shout out to Dave for showing us the little preview of the Content V2. Dave, honestly, it was a fun tangent. And again, for the sake of demonstrating what it's like to be on the cutting edge and to look for things and figure out what's going on, and to also admit when just everything's breaking, I think that was useful to do. So it is all good. With that said and done, once again, with all that said and done, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks everyone for hanging out today. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week, and I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye, everyone.